Hi, listener. This is From Ideology to Unity, a spiritual journey where we let go of ego and ideological doctrine in favor of meaning, purpose, and unity as a whole. Today, I'm interviewing Nick Shibanov from the Joyfulness Podcast. Nick's podcast is all about living with as much joy as possible. In a world where often people live in discontent, I see that as a worthwhile message for sure. How can, our, how can we be a kinder selves to ourselves and others? What is our sacred nature? Such questions and more are clarified in Nick's podcast. It's a podcast about conversation on the nature of existence, life, and genuine connection. I hope you enjoy this conversation. So, hi, Nick.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Lovely intro.
So, we're both Nicks.
Yeah. Nicholas. I have a coach. I coach, and for about a couple of months, I was called Nicholas. You just keep calling me Nicholas. I say, I sort of let it slide. I'm like, it's all right. Keep calling me Nicholas. Yeah.
Wow. So, what exactly is joy?
Oh, straight into it. No small talk. Let's do it. All right. What is joy? Great question. I guess it's different for everyone. Depends on someone's experiences. Well, it's only limited to what people are familiar with. I think if I had to tie it into an experience that we're all pretty familiar with, it's like playing with a dog, I would say. Like, you feel really free.
Yeah.
You're happy. You don't really care if the dog bites you. It doesn't really matter. It's all playful. It's all fun. Light. Yeah, just
It's
light.
playfulness then.
Yeah, playful, free. Yeah, that's probably at the heart of it, and feels really
I have
good.
a sense that living in joy is like, in some ways, living like a child again.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
How did
Very
you
much.
relearn that then?
How did I? Right. Well, for me, it sort of cracked open for me after an experience with ayahuasca. So for me, I studied physics and engineering, and I was very much like intellectual
Yeah,
world
I can relate to
kind
that.
of person. That's how I grew up. It's my family. And everyone, that was the value system at home. High achieving, you have to achieve high. So that's just what I knew. But then I came across some like research somehow about ayahuasca, and I was like, what is this thing? I don't know. I can't explain it. So for me, the logical thing was to just try it out for myself and see what it was about. And after I did that, that sort of just opened up a lot of a new realm of experience. And that's, yeah, the floodgates of, it's like almost like the floodgates that were holding back this joy just released and opened up, and everything kept coming up. For me, it was rather fast, and it just would only, by the day, just grow in this in beauty. And it's something within everyone, so
Mm.
it doesn't belong to, it belongs to everyone.
Do you
This
feel
joy.
like it was kind of pre-planned in some way that you were going to take ayahuasca and have that kind of awakening experience?
Planned. I have no idea. It certainly felt led by grace. I can say that much.
Hmm.
Like by grace, whether it's pre-planned or not, I have no idea. No clue. Yeah.
So do you think you could take us through the experience that you had on
Yeah, of
ayahuasca?
course. Sure. Um, well, the first I drank twice. The first time was the first time I had ever. It's my first psychedelic, pretty much. I had a bit of weed before then, but it was what, so like 20. First psychedelic. I didn't know what to expect, but I pretty much thought. I remember I spoke to someone next to me, and because we spoke later, and I told her like, oh, there's nothing to. I was actually not afraid at all, which was really strange. I was just really cocky. I
Right.
wasn't afraid at all. I was like, no, it's all right. Like, I don't even know if I was cocky. Probably just naive, maybe brave a bit as well. Some sort of mixture of arrogant, naive, and brave.
You're doing it for
um,
science, right?
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. To understand for me. When I was talking to the girl next to me, and I said, hey, like, yeah, it's all in your head, don't worry about it. But of course, after I did it, that all went out the window. Yeah, for me, it was just like you hear of entities, you hear of like these perceptual breakthroughs that you have, but if I had to sum it up, it'd just be going through like bliss, these blissful experiences, and also at the same time agonizing experiences, and being confronted with things that I didn't understand and didn't expect, that just throw a shock to my nervous system. And just being like, there were times where I was just going through every single emotion, for just laughing, crying for just, I don't even know how long. So the first time was sort of like a huge emotional storm of all this stuff that I didn't know was in me coming up, and quite overwhelming. But by the end of it, I was pretty exhilarated. But like, just the world I saw was completely different to when I woke
So
up.
suddenly, did you suddenly have this overwhelming, like, tunnel of light or something?
Overwhelming tunnel of light. That would come later.
All
That would
right.
come, but in this first time, there was an overwhelming sense of coming home during the experience that I do remember
Right.
quite explicitly. It's like, it was after all the agony, after all of that, it was kind of like, hey, we've been here all along. Welcome. And I'm like, wow, cool, yeah. And that was like the opening. It was really nice. But after that, that's when I started exploring. For me, it started with the psyche, and there's a book called, I don't remember. There's some book about the psyche. I could find it if it comes to me, hope maybe later. But I started reading a bit, getting into the mysteries and understanding. I wanted to make sense of life. That's when the questions started coming that you mentioned at the start of the podcast. Like, these questions started coming, and that led me to do something called Psych K eventually, which is a way to change subconscious beliefs, which is something that I use in my life, not so much anymore, but still did play a part. And then the most probably important part was letting go, because that experience was probably most profound, was the confrontation with death that I had no escape from. I felt like, I know probably to someone who hasn't had it's like an experience, you could say, yeah, but you didn't really die, but you did.
That's very
I,
intellectual to say, right? It's easy to say
yeah,
that, but it feels
yeah,
like death, right?
yes, yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't actually quite get there, but I did. I took DMT once, but I didn't really break through. But I did experience fear of death.
It's intense,
And
right?
yeah.
Yeah, it's this intense fear of death. And yeah, how was that for you?
Well, it's one of these things where I realized at a certain point everything was so overwhelming that I had to either let go or it'd be horrible. Um,
Right.
but when I did, it all got way easier. And then I had a sort of, I did feel like I've been guided in some sense.
Yeah.
Then it was almost like I had a conversation with my higher self or something like that. And like I realized I already really knew intellectually about like unity, and we're all like unified and stuff.
Right.
But I experienced it on another level. It wasn't
Yeah.
just intellectually.
Right. Yeah. 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 That's a really cool thing for this podcast. I like moving from the intellect into the embodied experiential. Is like, what's the point of staying in the boring intellect? Why not live it? Why
Yeah.
not live it every day? Yeah.
Is it
And letting go.
escapism
Yeah. It's
sometimes
amazing.
being in the intellect?
Yeah, it is. It's also like just purely it's reinforced everywhere around us, it's reinforced
Mm.
how we grow up. It's reinforced um, economically to be more intellectual and rational, and being able to problem solve really well. You get paid really well um, if you're able to do that really well.
So what is this special technique that is to deal with your subconscious beliefs and stuff?
Yeah, well, it was really cool. So I used to run a startup just before the days of the ayahuasca, still after, but we were building an app for someone and for like a group of people, and someone in the group of people, I was like, oh no, I don't need that. But later I would come to learn that she was this Psyche. So she taught people Psyche, and I had no idea about what it was. I'm like, what the hell is that? But eventually we spoke because she was really loving. All I noticed was she was just really loving. She was really just happy, energized, really nice to be around. And she never pressured me, never told me about it. She's never like, this is what I do. She never said that. It was all like invitational. It was a pool. After I started learning about the Psyche, I'm like, whoa, what the hell? What is this that you do? And then that's when we got talking. I learned a bit more about it. And it's just a way to change subconscious beliefs. The thing is that even after facilitating it, I still don't understand like the science. I still don't understand how. But after having so many experiences myself and other people working together with it, it's just, I know that it works. I don't know how it works, but it's just a way to change patterns, patterns of beliefs.
So what are the core steps that you take?
Right. For me, it's like being a mirror. The most important one is actually identifying it. So if I'm in with someone, it'd be to identify the belief. So it's sort of like I just ask a question, and what I found, what I've seen is the most important part is actually the intention between the two people. So on my half, to not try to control or guide, I'm not a guide, not try to control or steer the person, but rather be like a clear mirror. And then the other person's intention and willingness to go and find what they're looking for, which only they know, I'm just there for the ride. So that's the first step. Yeah.
Is it about kind of learning from the other person and what it brings up in you?
Yeah, it's about learning. Well, you can by the most important thing is you're here, you're with this person asks you a question, and then if it's a good session, then the person would realize, oh right, like, because we're so stuck we live so much in our shoes that we don't realize all these stories that we're telling ourselves 24/7. So when we have someone sit in front of us and say, hey, you just told me that like it's hard to do this, but that's just one perception, that's one point of looking at it. So there you go, that was just a discovery of a belief, right? Because we only say the things we believe.
Right.
We don't say the things we don't believe, otherwise we wouldn't say it. So we say all these things all the time, we just don't have someone to feed back off of. So that's like probably the most important part, is actually identifying what is a belief and realizing that it is just a belief. And then all I ask is this very, very simple question: what do you want to believe instead? Very simple. The other person will then, there's no logic behind it. It's totally intuitive. One person wants this, the other person wants that. Sometimes I've learned over my experiences, I don't, to suggest as little as possible. Just let the other person, because I don't actually know. Sometimes it might be an intuition, but often the other person always knows what's best for them, in my experience. Yeah. That's pretty much it. And then Psyche is the actual process of changing the subconscious belief. And then you just live your life, and see how things go. Yeah.
That sounds like something I could use as well.
Yeah.
I just had a thought. Like, I've been experimenting with tarot cards and stuff recently.
Right.
So I'm getting some practice, doing some readings with people for practice. And I just realized that sometimes I see a card and I might ask them a leading question kind of about what it seems to suggest. But that might be slightly putting my angle in there, right?
Yeah.
I could simply just, I don't know, like I could ask them how they feel about something, but without like suggesting what the answer is.
It's something that we have to learn. Yeah, it's a tough one, about suggesting things, and there is this balance. Sometimes it's nice to offer a intuition, but to also know, I guess it's, for me, it's about knowing myself quite well to see where it's coming from, like where it's coming from. Is it really intuition or is it something else? Really comes down to that. yeah, there's this. But what I've actually been working with more now, which is something I can offer like to anyone to use right now, is just like a series of questions to help this process of letting go. Uh, and it's been tremendously powerful. It's incredible. It's incredible. We can do it live right now if you want.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So do you have any anything that's particular, like any feelings that have been like most prominent recently, like like agitations or something?
Um, hmm. I mean, something I've been dealing with, I guess, is fear of being judged.
Right. Right. Perfect. Let's work with that. It's so simple, but it just works magical. It just works like magic. Okay, so with this fear, looking at this fear, could you in this moment, so your eyes can be open, eyes can be closed, doesn't really matter. Um, could you just welcome the feeling? And could you welcome any desire to change, fix, solve, prove or disprove, or do something with or about the feeling?
Hmm.
And could you welcome any sense that it's about you or happening to you? And could you just let it go?
All right.
How's that for you? Now, how does it feel now?
A little bit lighter.
A little bit lighter. What's left?
I have an awareness that, admittedly, I kind of had it before, but I have an awareness that it's a negative belief that I'm not. Well, I mean, I must be insecure about something. I must feel that I'm not good enough if other people saying that would bother me, right?
Right. So what's the, if you had to, um,
So I am
pin,
good enough.
sorry?
So I am good enough, right?
I don't know. What do you feel without, what do you feel if you had to
Well, I mean,
pinpoint?
it's this feeling of being attacked, right? It's kind of
Attack.
like,
Right.
yeah,
So you feel threatened.
yeah.
Right. Okay. Cool. Could you, in this moment, allow yourself to feel that? And could you allow any desire to change it or fix it, do something with or about it? Yeah, just see how deeply you could just let it be as it is already. I mean, it's already that way. May as well let it be there. uh,
Yeah, there's a sense of being unsafe generally, and it's not just about other people judging me or something. It's also about,
right. It's
you
a
know,
bit
if you're
deeper.
in a dark room, you wake up in the night and you're just like, oh no, what if something's there, right? You
Right.
hear something weird or something, right? And like, you know, it's just that it's fear
Yeah. Just fear.
and it's like an
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. The cool thing with these questions is that it really doesn't matter what your answer is.
It's
It's yeah, it's not about the answer. It's about what happens when you ask the question. And of course, the intention is what matters most. When you, it's like you hear the question, right? And you recognize something. Like I could see you recognize something. Like, hey, hang on. Yeah, I could. Like it's just so simple that the mind like dismisses it completely. It's like, there's no way this would work. There's no way. So it doesn't even try. It doesn't actually try, because we hear it all the time. We hear let go. We hear let things be, but we actually don't commit ourselves completely to it. We don't actually let everything be. We're always trying to, because when we're trying to solve stuff, when we're trying to figure it out, it's actually a form of trying to control it, which is not trying to let it be. Yeah. So that's I really like that approach. Involved. Yeah,
trusting your experience as how it's meant to be on some level.
Well, it's
guided.
That's actually a really good one. Trusting how it's meant to be. I mean, who's to say how it should be? Who are we to say how something should be? Are we God, the universe, life? There's something within us, and it's arising. And we say it shouldn't be that way. But if we saw the whole picture, we wouldn't say that. It just makes sense to us. We'd just be like, there you go. No wonder it's happening. Of course it is, how else would it be? Yeah. That's why I like that.
So what's that fundamental mechanism, do you think?
Letting go. That's letting go.
I mean, the mechanism behind that defensiveness or what?
Defensiveness. Right. Probably evolutionary, I would say. It just seems like that's just like, for example, if you look at a spider and you just put your little finger right next to the spider, it's just going to crawl away, run away. We think it's ours, the defensiveness is ours, but if we actually start to be observant and look around us, it's in all of life. All of life shares this like protective, very simple protective mechanism. Run away or go towards and eat if you're bigger than it. And yeah, I think we just tend to forget that we're not, my name's Nick. I'm not Nick, 23 years old. That's not me. I am life. I am the inheritance of the entire evolution of the animal kingdom. That's what I am. And so if I just relegate myself to this tiny little speck, it's going to be very difficult to understand what's going on or live in peace.
You mentioned something interesting where you're suggesting that you're part of nature as a whole.
Yeah. I am life. I am nature. You are nature. We are nature. We are life. There's no separation. It's the separation we make is entirely arbitrary. We just say, this is nature, this is me, but it's all one thing. There's no.
So acceptance seems to be a fundamental part of that process. Why is acceptance so important?
What? Right. Why is it so important? I mean, I guess you can just trial it yourself and see. In my experience, when we start with acceptance, we're unifying with how things are and riding along with it. Whereas when we're trying to fight it, if we're not accepting it, it means that we're trying to have things go a way that they aren't going. And so we create this tension within ourselves that we think is coming from the thing that we're not accepting, but actually it's coming from our very refusal to go along with it, which if we just let go, bam, it suddenly dissolves and there's no tension.
Because I was thinking that acceptance allows you to get to a unitive sort of experience. So you described it as unitive.
Acceptance.
And that's actually really interesting.
Yeah, the idea
that just by accepting, we're recognizing our oneness.
Yeah. We're letting go of the obstacles and resistances within ourselves to experiencing what we really are. It takes so much energy to not experience the truth of what we are, to not experience or live in that unity with life, which comes with that joy, which comes with that peace. It takes so much energy. It's incredible. Like it's like this massive it's like walking around with 50-kilogram weights your whole life, but because everyone walks around it and tells you that's how things are, you know, in the language of people that people use, like stress, anxiety, they're part of life. They don't have to be. They don't have to be at all. It's just this inner tension that we're so used to carrying that we seem to think for some strange reason that it can't be other than that. But I mean,
Right.
is that
So we
really
can
true?
chill basically.
Oh man, we can totally chill. We can
Yeah.
chill. Yeah. Chill is nice. Chill is nice. Yeah.
So this leads on to another issue, which is doing versus being.
Right.
So how do we engage with the world and or just be without without actively controlling it? How do we just flow and act or not?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
How do we actually, because you might need to do your taxes or there's stuff
Yeah,
that
yeah,
to get done,
yeah,
but at the
yeah.
same time we don't want to be trying to controlling everything. So how do we do that?
Right, right. I think this bogs down to this this a very it's an illusion, probably the primary illusion of the ego, which is that there is this central control unit called I that controls everything and does everything. That's fundamentally the where this question comes from. It's like, if there's no I, if there's no, how will everything get done? But actually, the thing is, life is spontaneous and emergent in nature. It's evolutionary in nature. Things just happen. And we then come in, there's this projection that comes in on top of it and says, this is what happened. This is who did it. This is what's going on. But that's all conceptual. It's all in our heads, basically.
Yeah.
So when, in my experience, through letting go, the more I let go, the more I see things happen completely freely, like freely. So it's like, if there's taxes to be done, then the taxes are done, but there's no one doing it. It just happens. Things just happen. That's what life is, even thoughts,
Right.
even the thought that we do control things is something that just happens. It's not like we think of it into
Wow.
existence. It just comes up, where does it come from? Not us. It just comes up. We claim the ego is just so funny. It's not, I don't see it as a bad thing. I see it as a very good deceptor. It's really good at its job. It's really good at its job. But
Now, why do we have an ego?
Why do we have an ego? I don't know. We seem to have one.
There must be a purpose for it being that, right?
Yeah, yeah. So for me, it would probably come down to the way I've come to understand the ego is through the work of David Hawkins and his lectures on Audible. So he has like a whole series of lectures that are about the ego, and he's my teacher, and he says like the most direct path to enlightenment is to intuitively understand the ego. Once you understand it, it dissolves, it loses its power over you.
Right.
I'm rephrasing that in my own words. But essentially, as I've come to understand it, as I've come to see it, also experience it, is that within us all, we have this animal nature. It's very primitive. And what happens is we then come in and moralize about it and say, this shouldn't be here. This should be here. This is how we should be. But back to that life thing, that animal nature is what got us here. It's what allows us to now moralize about it, is the fact that it's there and it got us here. So that's what the ego is to me. It's our animal nature that has evolved over billions of years to be as it is. And so when we look at it from that perspective, it's a lot more helpful and a lot more easy, because we're able to go easy on ourselves, because we inherit it. It's not what we are, but it is something that we have to take responsibility for. Or we don't have to. I mean, we don't have to do anything. But if we want to live a peaceful life, it helps to take responsibility for the ego. And it's like, now becomes your pet instead of your enemy to fight the ego. I don't know. It doesn't work very well when I try to fight stuff. Yeah. So that's
so well, think of it like you've got a cat, right? Or a dog. And if you're constantly trying to control it, it won't go well. But you could have it in your lap just purring.
Right. Yeah, and treats. You can give it treats. But if you I tried it. I actually tried it. I mean, I was dog sitting for a while, and I was like out of habit, because that's how I learned to treat dogs. Not necessarily in a very mean way. I love dogs, but in terms of training them, I was taught that negative reinforcement. So like punish for doing something bad. I tried that. It did not work. The dog did not understand what I was talking about. It did not work. But what worked really well, and what I saw with others working really well, was treats. They love treats. They just follow you around. You don't have to punish them. It's like, it's sort of the same thing with the ego. You just give it treats, like, like laughing with it, being like, this is a funny one, which we're not used to hearing, I guess. But if we have like a judgmental, especially if we're spiritually aligned, if there is a thought that comes up, I hate that person, or that person should die, what we tend to do is be like, oh my God, that shouldn't be there. It needs to go away. I need to punish myself. I'm so bad. I'm not spiritually advanced. What the hell? But there's a flipped version, which is so much more easy, so much more enjoyable, and you're actually able to have fun now, is to just actually reinforce, or not reinforce, but just laugh with it, to be like, yeah, of course, ego wants to kill. Like that. I know you want to kill that person for cutting in front of us.
No, I just love that out of context.
Yeah, exactly.
I know you want to kill that person, but
no, that's perfect. That's exactly the point. When you laugh at it, when you make it, you see the absurdity of it, and now you laugh at it rather than moralize and say and create this inner conflict. Now you can just laugh it off in a second, and no matter what it is, it doesn't matter what it is. Just treating it all with like a so what.
So what
like
counts as treating? Because someone might interpret treating your ego as, well, if you want to smoke, smoke. If you want to have lots of chocolate, have that. If you want cocaine, have cocaine. So where's the line between that kind of, well, what you could call indulgence?
Yeah.
And like actually something constructive?
That's a great question. That's something that I've been exploring more recently. I don't know. There is that indulgent side you're speaking about. There is that indulgence where we just let, like, okay, like, let things be. All right, I'll let this I'll let this be. I'll cocaine, I'll do this, do that. So there seems to be a place for discipline. Like discipline seems like quite a nice thing to have, in that if there are like extremes like that, then yeah, sure. But
I had an idea. What if you can use your method on it and think, of, why do I want to take cocaine? No, I don't. I'm just saying, just to clarify. But like, if you do, or whatever it is, like, because maybe you've got a negative belief behind that, where you need to like make yourself complete with like cocaine.
Yeah. Well, that's probably I wouldn't say I had the answer, but that's sort of where my sense of things is with what you just said, with what's been helpful for me as well, is to understand where the drive is coming from, and then take the necessary steps to, sometimes if you have an addicted personality, probably to go AA or some 12-step group. But
you got to love yourself, not judge yourself.
Oh yeah, it doesn't help at all to judge. It only actually, if you look at it, it really only strengthens it. Like, I'll give you an example, like Netflix, right? I was watching a bit of Netflix, and I'd noticed that this part of me that goes, "Oh no, shouldn't be watching Netflix, should be meditating, should be doing something." But what helped me was it was actually just spontaneous. So just allowing that to come up, allowing that, like, should do this to come up. And then what came from that was just this realization, like, I'm just going to enjoy it. If I imagine God, or if I imagine, like, for me, God, the infinitely loving creator of all that is, okay, would that sort of power, or would God be interested in my self-punishment, my judgment? I don't think so. I think it's just enjoyment. Like, even for the ones we love, for the ones we love, we want them to enjoy life. We want them to have fun. We don't want them to feel bad about themselves. So that's something that we carry on ourselves for because we think it'll help, because we don't feel worthy enough of being happy. But yeah, what's really cool is that I do have this thing that I am exploring at the moment about addictions and being free of them just through enjoying them, which is a sort of counterintuitive approach. But
so what do people normally do then if they don't enjoy it?
Oh, they don't enjoy. I don't think they enjoy it. To me, enjoyment means consciously enjoying it. So like if I'm eating chocolate, which I have been practicing recently, is like
a lot, right?
Yeah. If I'm eating chocolate, just pause and like really smell it. Like appreciate the smell. Appreciate it and give thanks for it. To me, that's what enjoying it is. Like this, you're turning it into this conscious, this activity to bring your awareness to the beauty of it. And what I've been noticing is the more I do this, the less it becomes compulsive. But what I have been noticing is when it is compulsive, that's when it's an addiction. That's when it's like driven. There's a drivenness behind it. It's incessant.
Yeah.
And no
so it's
matter
not
what
about what you're doing. It's about
how
what's going on in here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I've been seeing recently. Yeah. Is to just pause more, appreciate it more. Even if so, for example, with a cigarette, right? To actually appreciate as much as you can. If you can, appreciate whatever you can. The texture, the whatever it is. And actually consciously enjoy it, because that way you're more aware of it. And then something I learned from Hawkins is he would say, if you want to stop eating cookies from a cookie jar, he says, forget discipline. Forget discipline, forget trying to willpower. It doesn't work. So he says, just count the cookies you eat, count the cookies. And just, that's all you do. Just count it. Just count it. Write it in your diary. Okay, today I ate 5 cookies. Today, so that's what I've been doing with the chocolate. I've just been counting it.
So during journal work, well, actually, that there's part of me that's like, okay, I could use a journal, but that sounds like a chore, right? But you could,
yeah,
it could be fun, maybe, just to make a little game out of it.
Yeah, a little game. Yeah. Yeah. And the principle, if you wanted to tie it into science, that utilizes is the observer effect, that just observing something changes it rather than having to do, which we normally try. So that's what I've been employing more of. And I can say that even though the activity so far I've been doing for maybe like a couple of weeks, the activity, like the amount of chocolate, sort of it's changed. But what has changed a lot more with Netflix and with the chocolate for the time that I've been doing it is the quality of the experience. It's changed like quite a lot, actually. It's becoming less and less compulsive, becoming more and more enjoyable. And I can just see these moments of lack of interest in it. And that's what I'm looking for in this. Like, this is just my own little experiment. I'll have to let you know in like 2 months how it goes. But for me, what I'm looking for is, and sort of my hypothesis is like, you eventually reach this point where suddenly you wake up and you're no longer interested in it. It just doesn't interest you to eat that chocolate. It just doesn't interest you to watch that show. That's what I'm looking for within myself. And I've had these experiences where I've seen it's possible. So yeah, that to me is a lot more sustainable than willpower, because willpower implies that you have something to overcome.
It sounds like you're almost detached from whether or not you do it, even though you're doing it.
Yeah. So enjoying it, no matter what it is. No matter what it is.
That's like you're unconditionally loving the experience.
I guess you can take that perspective. Yeah.
Is this related at all to reliance on the Holy Spirit? That's something you mentioned in one of your episodes.
Right. Yeah, it is. Totally. Totally. I mean, to me, that's why I'm so happy all the time. Well, it's a major part. Actually, that's probably the major part of it. It's completely a blessing, and I'm aware that it's a blessing, and I'm aware that I don't have to do anything, and I'm aware that it's not up to me, and I'm aware that it's not my efforts. It's something beyond that. And I think we struggle a lot when we think everything's on us and we think that we have to overcome this. But in AA, if you look at AA, so alcoholism used to be it used to be something you died from before AA. So this was people these days. I think there's some people that poo-poo AA without quite understanding that before Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 Steps program, which are applied to more than just alcoholism these days, any addiction, alcoholism was something you died from. It was, if you had it, you die. So this was the first recoverable program, which is amazing. And the first step is admit that you're powerless. That's the first step. I was in a group the other day, and it was the 12 steps applied to emotions, which I was really interested in. So I went to an online meeting, and the first thing people said was, my name's Nick. I'm powerless over my emotions. For me, I said, more true for me was, my name's Nick. I am powerless over the arising of my emotions. I really like that one.
Wait, isn't that why people drink? Because they're trying to control their emotions.
Right. Maybe. I'm not sure. That's potentially, yeah. Yeah. It's a whole subject of its own. Don't even know. It makes sense to me that there's the addiction comes from this inner place of emptiness that tries to to fill it up with whatever it can, numb the mind however it can. That's
in spirituality, isn't there this idea that we are emptiness? It's like a Buddhist principle, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So why do you want to fill it
in?
You could just,
I don't know. Maybe emptiness could be replaced with, just to be like more clear in terms of the Buddhist principle of emptiness, it could be maybe more replaced with coldness, lack of inner warmth, lack of inner comfort, lack of
maybe you could replace it with, if there's an empty space, then there's loads of space. So for expression. So instead of being a problem, you could change your perspective of that experience into, you could experience anything. It's unlimited potential.
Right. Yeah, it could. You could see how it goes. I think.
Moving on slightly, there's something you mentioned about dreams. So how do you relate to your dreams?
Dreams. Oh yeah. So the way I use dreams, just sort of popped up intuitively for me mostly, was just realizing that how we experience life is entirely like subjective, and then we categorize what we think is. So for example, we say our waking experience is real. Whatever we experience there is real. Whatever we experience in dreams is unreal. The way I like to play around with dreams, it's all just playing around for me, is to see what feelings it brings up within me, and also just be aware and just question if there's any significance to the dream. There's something for me to learn. And something that I tried recently was something that worked pretty well, was active imagination. Something that Jung, like a Jungian thingy, majiggy, that I didn't really know much about, but I read the word and I'm like, oh, cool, that sounds cool. And I just sort of got it. It's just like imagining what the dream means to me. Just imagining, just kind of letting my mind go wild, be like, hey, if I had no limitations, what would this dream mean to me? That's sort of a cool way to trick the mind into actually playing around with it and not being limited by all these constraints we give. Sometimes there's cool meaning in the dream that I can learn from a lot. A lot of the time I like the feelings, to become aware of whatever feelings I'm holding within myself, because the feeling is coming from within me, whether it's a dream, whether it's a waking state, the feeling could only be experienced if it's coming from within me. So either way, I can always use dreams as a tool for mindfulness, basically, awareness of myself, emotionally. Yeah.
So can we use active imagination on anything?
Oh yeah, we can. I think we can. I did use it recently as well. I was, I see like someone every 2 weeks who helps me like inquire deeper, which I really like. And today or yesterday, when we had our session, she's like, something came up and she asked me, "Hey, Nick, so she just asked me, she's like, do you have any images that come up for this?" I described to her this feeling, what was coming up for me, and I said, "Do I have any images?" And I said, "Yeah, there was." And I told her about I sort of recognized what she was saying and what she was asking. And I'm like, that's a cool idea. Let's go along with it. So we just sort of played with it. And I was able to use that, imagination with the intention of unraveling or letting go or becoming aware. So for me, there was this image that came up just in mind. This is how I see it, at least. When she asked that question, what came up was suddenly just this blue, like a blue. Blue came up. Why blue? Why not green? Why not red? Why not something else? And what also came up was some images of trees and some like a little boy in a playground. And I think usually what my mind does and what our mind tends to do is it rationalizes really, really quickly. It says, this is just imagination. It sets it aside. But in that space where our intention was to understand, our intention was to go deeper within and play around with it and just experiment with it, just have fun with it. I was like, it's almost like you have to give yourself permission to allow yourself to use imagination in this way. And then that helped me immensely, actually. It helped me immensely so she asked me, and she just asked me this thread of questions that led me to basically see a little boy within me that was just very cold and didn't feel loved at all and was very, very sad and non-responsive to anyone. And to me, that was like a representation of this inner apathy that I had discovered within me.
Holy shit. I relate
Yeah,
to that
right?
so much. That's how I felt.
Oh, cool. Yeah. And then so she asked me a question when I saw that. She asked me like, well, she first asked, she's like, could you say hello to this boy? I said, okay. I'm like, hey, my name's Nick. And I was like, so what did he say? I said, well, I introduced myself, but the little boy didn't answer. He didn't say anything. He was just kept looking down. So I asked her, she's just like, okay, well, could you like maybe ask this little boy what's going, and this was all just in my imagination, right? But I was feeling it and I was aware of it. And I think that's what's important. Rather than relegating, this is imagination, this is real. If we feel it, if we see it, then it's real to us, right? It's real to us. So she asked me a question. She's like, okay, could you ask this boy what's going on? And I'm like, okay. So no expectations. I just ask. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just ask. Hey, what's going on? Like, what's up? What's going on with you? Like, are you all right? And he's like, I'm no one loves me. Just basically, this little boy just said, no one loves me in a very cold way. And then I told her that. I said, that's what he says. And then she says, okay, well, what's your like natural response? So what's your natural response? And I just told her, I'm like, just hug the boy. So that's what I did in my imagination. But it was really cool because in my imagination, I could see that the little boy was gaining back his color. Like he wasn't blue anymore. There was color there just from this hug. And I realized that that's when I actually like I heard it before that there's nothing to fix, that you can't fix anything. I heard that. But that's when I really experienced that the only thing we can really do is love and accept something. Like the only thing that brought back the color, the warmth of this boy was hugging him. So simple, right? So obvious, but not to the mind, not with all its concepts and its ideas. So yeah, in that way, imagination, it can be our worst enemy, but it can also be our best friend if we use it consciously. So it's not about what it is, it's about, I guess, how we use it. That's what I learned about that. And I guess we can do that anytime. We can be like, I've been actually straight after that, I used it with some clients and it worked really well. It's like, if there's a feeling there, I just like, okay, cool. It just came to mind. Hey, so like, imagine we set a table, we're setting like a tea table, like a tea party, and each feeling is sort of like embodied around the table. What would this feeling say? What would this feeling want from you? Can you ask it? Because normally we judge everything so harshly without actually even considering to ask, hey, what does this shame want from me? Hey, what does this fear want from me? We tell it what to do rather than asking, which was a really cool realization. And it's a really powerful exercise. We can just play around in our mind. The only limitation is this little nagging voice that says, nah, it's not real. It's not real.
Yeah. But wait, we need to be kind to that voice as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we don't need to, but it helps. It helps. It helps to be kind. The cool thing is, yeah, kindness is just so underutilized. It's like so powerful. If it's utilized, if it's really committed to. So if we commit to being kind to everything, no matter what, at all times, that can cut everything. It cuts through everything. Because no matter what, you've just made a commitment. You say, okay, I'm going to be kind to this no matter what. And you start to realize how much meanness there is within us, and judgment and criticism of others and mostly of ourselves. And then you start to realize, oh, wait a minute, there's like this incessant desire to fix it and do something with it. But that's just like you said, something else to be kind to. And that's where cool questions are like, that's where allowing and acceptance and those questions that were asked come in as well. Because that's, to me, what kindness, where it starts, is by allowing something to be as it is. You can't be kind to something unless you acknowledge it as it is. That's like the very foundational starting point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what do you do if you're in a really challenging situation, like someone is threatening you and like, yeah, you just feel really like these things happen in life sometimes, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Depends what you want. What do you want from the situation?
Well, what I'm saying is that might be a lot harder to do for someone to be kind.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Right. So like right. Well, kindness is all inclusive. So kindness includes you. So it also includes knowing your limitations at the moment. So maybe for one person, let's say, like there's examples of people, stories I've heard of these people who, someone pulls a gun to his head, right? Someone pulls a gun to his head. He looks him in the eyes. He says, basically like, I know this isn't what you want. But he's able to do that because he is very clear within himself. Like he's in touch with that love for himself, for life, which are one and the same thing. So he's able to do that and come across unharmed, right? But for most people, for most of us, when there's fear within us, if there's even a little bit of fear, or if there's fear within us, it tends to bring about the fear within the other person. And people will sense that.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And so probably in that instance, the smart thing or the kind thing to do would just be to just go along with it for the highest good. You think, okay, what's for the highest good? Yeah, I'll give him my wallet. Yeah, I'll give him my car. I'm saving my life here. So I think it's just going back to knowing yourself. That's probably, it's so context dependent. It so depends on the situation, depends on the person, depends on so many variables. There's just no way to know until it happens. But what's really cool is having the trust that when it does happen, you'll know what's good for what is kind in that instant. And you'll know you can only do your best. So, maybe you have, maybe someone puts a gun to your face and you get a bit angry. Oh, okay. That's right. That's a very natural response. That's fine. Again, there's no point being angry or bitter about the angerness or the bitterness. Doesn't really help in any way. So, yeah. Does that answer that question? Sort of like.
Yeah. I'm actually trying to apply your principles to this interview. I'm just trying to like.
Right.
There's this temptation for like, okay, what's the next question?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You interview people yourself, so you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. Yeah, well, what I love in my podcasts, there's some people I resonate with so much in the podcast, and it just flows. It just flows so well. And I've been learning more to align more with those people and have more of those people on decline the other ones that don't. There's sometimes I get this like real sense that someone wants something, or they want to promote something, or they want to, maybe they're kind, they're nice, but they're stuck in a script in their mind that they want to just, so there's no flow, there's no genuine curiosity for me, or for actually exploring life. It's not really about me, it's about exploring life together. That's what it is for me. So yeah, in interviews, I just love that. Like my friend calls it riffing. We just riff on something.
Right.
Then like tennis, like I go, then you go, and then he goes, and then yeah, it's just nice, effortless flowy flows. Yeah. Part of the flow might be whatever question arises in mind for you. That's part of life, whatever comes up for you is a part of it. And then you just learn from the feedback. You'll know when you say it, you'll be like, oh yeah, yeah, it feels right. Or it'll be like, oh yeah, okay, maybe not. You just learn, learn as you go. Yeah. At least that's what I try.
So what do you actually do? Like your work, so to speak.
Right. Yeah. Well, what do I do? I do many different things. For me, the primary avenue right now is just YouTube, podcasts, writing, and one-on-one work with people. That's the main thing that
What do you write?
uh weekly newsletter called Joyful Broadcast. I write for some other things as well, but that's the main one. Just topics that help, in my own experience, unravel the obstacles to joy, and through understanding, and through gentleness, and through ease, and through, yeah. And so in this newsletter, I just the topic that came up for me was listening, deeply listening, and sharing my experiences with seeing within myself where, hey, hang on, I'm actually not listening to the person who's in front of me. I'm trying to fit them into a box. I'm trying to verify my own perception. I'm not actually interested in expanding. I'm interested in contracting, keeping that person, putting him into a box. So I learned that. I'm like, wow, every moment we listen to someone, we have this incredible opportunity to expand our perspectives. And I'm aware of that even speaking with you. Like everything you say, I can deeply listen to it, and that intention like catalyzes this new perspective, this new perception. Or I can do the boring thing and try to be like, oh yeah, that agrees with what I know, or that doesn't agree. Like, who cares about that? It's
Yeah.
about perspective expansion, not about right or wrong. I don't really vibe that language. Like, you are right, you are wrong. Like, who cares?
Let's have good vibes, right? It's like kids on the playground, like you want to have fun. If there's some kid that's just like, no, we're going to do it this way, right? And it's just kind of like, but why? I mean, yeah, why not try new things?
Yeah, play. I think play is something that I have to, in terms of joy, recently relearn. Having that playful curiosity again that we all have as kids. But I think what I've seen, at least in me, definitely because I was a very sensitive kid, so that curiosity was almost like, it's like pounded out of, just pounded. And to me, it's like I can see it as this like need to justify ourselves as kids. It's like we're pretty much told to explain ourselves. We're told how we should be. We're told to explain ourselves. We're not engaged in this like relationship with our parents, with the adults, of co-discovery. We're more told, like it's sort of authoritative structure, which is all right if it's a strong authority, but most people are not emotionally mature. Most parents are not, so we get bombarded, and that inner curiosity, that inner playfulness that we're so not natural for all of us as kids. It's like it just shrivels up like
it's
that.
Like, stop doing that. What are you doing, Matt? Don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. Control, this like need to control and
Yeah.
contain this curiosity.
It's a
I've had
question.
to learn to unleash it again. Yeah.
What is maturity? Because we can grow up with this idea of what maturity is, but what is
Right.
maturity really?
Right. Well, to me, it's maturity. It's like continuously expanding your perspective is what I would say, or your perception to be more and more uh, all encompassing. And with that comes naturally this emotional, like for me, number one of emotional of maturity is understanding that what you feel is your own feelings coming up. No one can make you feel anything. So that's something that's not really understood by most of us, is that we
Yeah.
blame, we project for all our feelings, for how we feel. So I think maturity starts with that. It's acceptance, it's compassion, being able to empathize with people, understand, see their perspective, flexibility, caringness, like all these things come naturally with this expanded perspective. Yeah. And yeah, I guess that's, well, what is it to you? What's maturity to you?
I guess what you said, I mean, that resonated. So
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. Like, seems to be not having like some sort of defensive justification or judgment or criticism and just be like, well, it can be constructive actually, criticism, but like it just is without the, yeah, but this, but that, you know.
Yeah, yeah, I see.
So I guess that controllingness itself is, if it's coming from an insecure place, that's not really mature.
Yeah.
Insecure isn't mature or something.
Yeah. Oh, I love what you said about the, yeah, trying to justify. Maturity is sort of like very grounded. Maturity is
I thought you were
grounded.
going to say grace for a sec.
Grace, that's like a next level. That, I think that comes naturally through this grounding. As we ground ourselves, we start to discover these things like, hey, nothing, this is by, at the end of the day, it's by grace that anything is possible at the end of the
Ah,
day.
okay. What's grounded spirituality compared to ungrounded spirituality?
Oh yeah, ungrounded spirituality is, ooh, it's an intellect is the grounded in experience. Grounded, it always has to be grounded in experience. I've been more and more these days, and I admit I have more to cut myself to being more and more pinpoint accurate. If I'm saying something, to make sure that it's coming from my experience, not some sort of intellectual concept that I have. Because if it's a concept, why is it there? It means that I don't have the experience, and I have to rely on this secondary thing called the conceptual understanding. So more and more these days, because I've been able to see how, like, there's a Zen proverb which I think talks about the ungrounded spirituality, where it talks about like nothingness, right? And there's this like Zen disciple, and he's in the little monastery, and he's talking, and he understands everything intellectually. He's like, he knows it all intellectually, and he's saying like everything is emptiness, that nothingness is reality. There is nothing. And one of the teacher comes up to him, and the teacher is him. So Zen, they're quite direct. So he gives him a really big slap. Gives him a big slap on the head. And the disciple gets really angry. He's like, "What? Hey, why'd you just slap me? Why'd you slap me?" He said, "Hey, man, everything's emptiness. Everything's nothing. Who's getting angry?" So that to me is an example of ungrounded, and the dangers. Well, let's call them, yeah, the potential, the slippery slope of getting stuck in the intellect, where that's
Yeah.
how you get tricked into all sorts of strange things. And yeah, that's to me what is what can only be cut through by a very, very like sharp honesty. It has to be extremely sharp and that's something that we can cultivate. We can sharpen this knife of honesty every day with ourselves.
What
So
do
that
you
when it
do
comes
though? Sorry,
Sorry?
when all these exploring all these ideas and concepts, so fun. At least for me, it is. For some people, it is. So there's nothing inherently wrong with that. But
No, not at all.
how do we explore these ideas without getting caught up in them and too much in our head?
I'm a big fan of more fun. More fun, please. More enjoyment, please. It's not that these things are not fun. It's just that there's something way more fun. It's like these things are really fun. It's really fun to explore, really fun to come to grasp things. But what's way more fun is to actually experience them. What's way more fun is when you experience it, you require zero understanding, like conceptual. You don't require zero thought. It's just there. It's clear. You don't need to hear about God. God's there. That's divinity is shining forth right in front of you. That's way more fun than a conceptual understanding.
Right. So
more fun,
the question is, I guess, we come up with these ideas, or ideas come to us, or we discover these ideas, and we're like, wow, that's really cool. And then what if you combine it with this and stuff like that? And then you could be like, what if I do it? I don't just, because then it's like, okay, it's great to have that idea. The best thing about that idea is it enables you to then do it. Right? There's the opportunity, and you might miss the opportunity to attach to the ideas.
Right. Yeah. It's like you said, like there's nothing wrong with it. Enjoying it, actually enjoying it. For me, it's like enjoying the moment. Like sometimes very cool. There's insights.
Sorry, like with the cigarettes and the chocolate.
Yeah.
You can do that with the concepts.
Right. Cool. There you go. Oh yeah, love them. Love the concepts. Let them be there. Just watch them. Because that's at the heart of the taking note of how many cookies there are. It's just observing consciously. Right. So like observing the concepts, like, hey, there's a concept that's coming up. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, you don't need to like shut down all those ideas.
Oh, that's not. Yeah, because that's not very kind.
Right. At the same time, you don't want to just be like, you know, well, this idea, that idea's wrong, this idea's right, and and then you're so sucked into the ideas that it can be all kind of like, it's almost like if you're stuck in your third eye chakra, but you're not even in your heart at all. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, we all these rattling thoughts and we're thinking all about it. And you can feel through a sort of dynamic action or engagement when you're not just, otherwise you're just like coldly analyzing it. Potentially.
Right. Potentially. Yeah. I think dropping away from analysis is something that's been something that I've been learning recently. Is like you said, feeling into it more, and you know, something that my teacher would say, he said, so the only thing that blocks us from this awareness, this presence, are all these feelings that are within us, all these bottled up feelings of the past, or this my own way of putting it. The only thing stopping us from experiencing the presence of grace, divinity, God, the one, whatever word is used for it, is There's all these bottled up feelings within us, all these bottled up. So instead of worrying about all these concepts, like almost a more direct route is to just let go of these feelings and let the
How?
revelation. Right. To me, that's what letting go is. That little thing that we practiced before, those questions, is just becoming curious with a feeling, looking to start to walk towards it rather than away from it. And yes, that requires courage. So looking to the feeling. And then for me, I ask these questions that help me let go. Like, could I welcome this feeling? And just welcoming every feeling that comes, but really welcoming every single feeling.
Wait, I just had an idea. With the idea that getting absorbed into concepts can be like, particularly analyzing them as well, it can be like an addiction.
Right.
Right. Where if you use your method, where you ask those questions about how you feel about it and why you're doing it, why you feel like you have to or you want to, we can go from there to the experiencing it and feeling it like it's the chocolate. And then from there, that allows us to let go of the feelings that might actually be behind the concepts.
Right. Yes. Yes. The feelings that are behind because every thought is energized. Otherwise, it wouldn't be there.
And feeling is energy.
Yeah. Feeling is the energy. Yeah, exactly. This is cool. Yeah. So it'd be like looking within. So it's like a inner inquiry. It's a self-inquiry combined with this letting go. So looking to inquire into the nature of the feeling with this childlike curiosity and playfulness, and then letting go of the resistance to it. That's what we're letting go. So then the feeling just dissolves of its own. In other words, loving the feeling is another way of dissolving it. So actually, and the cool thing is, it's a really cool thing. If we want to change a feeling or if it bothers us, it means that we haven't actually given it all the love and attention that we can, that we can. It's all within us. We can, if we wanted to. So that's a cool feedback mechanism that, hey, this agitates me. Oh, hang on. Like, that means there's something about it that I haven't come to love and accept. And then that can be its own inquiry, be like, hey, where's that coming from? What motivates the unwillingness to love and accept it? Maybe there's this illusion that I don't deserve it. Maybe, I don't know. It could be something.
You're trying to cope and escape from how you feel to anything else, potentially. I'm really grateful that that we ended up having this interview, because I've learned from this. I feel like I can apply what you're saying for my own life.
Wonderful. That's the most important part, right? Yeah.
So I'm probably going to listen to this again just to really get the benefit of it. Because I'm grateful for this. I think there's.
Thank you. I'm grateful for this opportunity. There's something really cool is that I like your recognition. And the cool thing I love, because these are just words, right? But we're able to recognize something behind the words. And that's the really cool thing, that everything, and I'm sure the listeners as well, there's like times where you just recognize something because that's already within everyone. It's already within us. I think we tend to, especially I think in the world, it's so common to want to have someone with all the answers and go to them. And the last thing we sometimes want to hear is, hey, everything's within you. But it is. It is within you. Otherwise, you couldn't recognize it. Like how it all just sounds like gibberish. It's all like gibberish. You can't recognize English unless you already know English. So you already know everything. It's almost like we have to be given permission, or be in a space where our intention is to understand and our intention is to see. But imagine if we like had that intention every single moment of our lives, to use the person in front of us as our teacher. Like what could they teach me about life? Maybe something that, I don't know, but we don't have to. That's the cool thing. We don't have to know.
Right. We can be a student of life instead of a student of authority.
Right. Life is our
because then we don't choose who we listen to. Instead, it's just like, let's just learn from everything.
Yeah, exactly. It's a cool one. And the cool thing is that's when we really start to get curious with life, with people, to be like, hey, why, like maybe they've like robbed, I don't know, robbed some stores, killed some people, ran over some people, just like using an extreme example. And most people are walking right past them. But because there's this inner curiosity, we just go up to them and be like, hey, like, can you tell me about your life? How do you think that was a good idea? You know, I don't want to judge you. I'm just really curious. Like, please tell me. I want to understand. And then there's this now love and acceptance that they feel like, hey, this person really cares about me and actually wants to understand me. Like how?
Yeah, they're not used to that. They're used to someone be like, "Whoa, why are you doing this?" But if you actually maybe they don't feel like they've been treated human, and so.
Yeah.
But if you treat them like a human being and someone who's hurting inside, because that's how it is, probably.
Yeah.
Not to judge, but you can. So many people, they're acting out these hurt inner child aspects of themselves. Right? You can look at it in yourself, but you could also potentially see it in other people. And why would you not love someone who's kind of like, when, why would you not love a child that's in pain that you could support in some way?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it comes down to like I'm part of this mentor group for kids. And I noticed that some of the approaches, some people's approach in that thing is to see the kid as something to fix. Like, hey, like at the end, like they didn't go as planned. Things didn't go as planned as they should have gone. Like, how can I fix this? But that's like, I imagine if that's how someone felt towards me, that's not something that really inspires warmth, affection, and love within me. It's something that makes us feel pressured to be a certain way, which is what we experience most of our life. I think that's the main block to this inner curiosity and love, is this pressure and this desire to fix everyone instead of, which is something I've had to, it takes time, I think, to unlearn, especially from a strong logical background, to unlearn that mindset, that fixer mentality, and to just really deeply realize that actually nothing to fix. The only thing you can do, the best thing you can do when you're sitting with someone is to just your presence. That's it. That's more than enough. That love and acceptance, which at the end of the day, you can only give as much of that as you have owned within yourself. And that's the best way we can help everyone, is just to love and accept ourselves. But the practical way of that, at least for me, is to become curious with ourselves as we are. Like, that's what acceptance is. That's what love is. Love's, if you imagine Mother Teresa sitting in front of you, what would she probably ask? She'd probably ask you, hey, how's your day? But like with deep, deep love and care. Like, she really wants to know, how are you?
Yeah.
So we can be that to ourselves and to other people. I think that's what it really looked like. Because we hear love and accept ourselves. We hear these all the time. But what does it actually look like? I think to me, that's what I've been understanding. It's like really deeply becoming curious with ourselves and asking, rather than judging and pushing away all these things. Maybe we should just understand them before we do any of that,
Yeah, it's a much more fun way to live.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think that's a good way to sum up like what we've been talking about, really, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a playful, curious, exactly. Fun. We can actually bring fun into our lives by the way we hold it in mind.
Fun is joy, and joy is what your podcast is all about.
Great segue. Great segue. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So I'm going to conveniently wrap this up
Perfect.
with that. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed. I certainly did. I hope you got something out of this so that perhaps you can have more joy in your life and playfulness in your life. So yeah, I hope you have a great day or evening, and bye for now.